Welcome, friends. Welcome to the Corporate Report, specifically to Propaganda Watch, that series where we break down the most ridiculous propaganda floating around the interwebs, and in our short but growing tradition of examining propaganda so outrageous you could scarcely believe it exists, today we turn our attention to Europa.eu, the official website of the European Union, and more specifically to their Taxlandia game, aimed at propagandizing and indoctrinating children about the wonders and loveliness of taxation and how it can save your country. And the first thing that you will notice once you land on the Taxlandia site is the obnoxious music that they play in the background, if you're so inclined. Talk about a chord progression, huh? Well, I will save you from that, but let's go on to the glossary, where we can find out about the terminology that they're using to try to indoctrinate the youth, and here we go. We start with tax. What is tax, anyway? Well, tax is money gathered by the government. What a lovely use of passive voice to make it sound all, well, they're just passing around a hat. They're gathering money and then redistributing it to people living in the same city or country, or to build roads, schools, parks, and places that we couldn't do without. That's what taxation is, people. And the amount gathered depends on how much money people have. One wonders what it would sound like if the school bully wrote about collecting lunch money from the other children and redistributing it to his friends. But anyway, tax. Is that what tax is? Oh, okay. Thank you for enlightening me, European Union. Income tax equals money people receive from work or from somewhere else, which, even if we're going by this lollipop unicorn dictionary, is not what income tax is. That might be what income is, money people receive from work or from somewhere else. But income tax is that portion of the money that you receive from work or from somewhere else that is stolen by the government. So, again, this makes no sense even. Property tax, money paid by people who own a property. Again, wonderful use of a passive description, just paid by people. Oh, here you go. What are they paying for? Budget equals a summary of estimated income and intended expenditures. Budget rectification, redistributing funds that cannot be spent by the end of the year to ensure ongoing programs. Tax revenue, money that authorities collect from citizens when they pass around that cap, right? Anything you can spare, guys. And companies, in order to pay for public services, like hospital beds and equipment, school repairs, park renovations, fire department cars. In keeping with the Propaganda Watch short but growing tradition of English that isn't really English, fire department cars? I think you might want to speak to my 5-year-old son about that choice of words, guys. It's called fire trucks. But anyway, etc. Indeed. What a wonderful list of things. I wonder what that etc. includes, because yeah, of course, they're spending this money on hospital beds and equipment, school repairs, park renovations. Wow, it just sounds like they're so concerned about you. And oh, right, your tax dollars, or more than 53% of your tax payment goes to the military. This breaking down the 2011 proposed budget. This is an article from 2010 talking about the U.S. government expenditures, discretionary spending, and the Pentagon's budget being a requested $708 billion for 2011, with $200 billion in supplemental funding for overseas contingencies, including, of course, the war in Afghanistan and Iraq at that time. Add in Libya and Syria and whatever else since that time. So there you go. The ultimately trillions that get spent on the military each and every single year. If you want a little bit more of a up-to-date version of this, you can get the 2015 discretionary spending. And again, this is just the the official on-the-book total number that they were giving for 2015 of the military of $600 billion. It doesn't include all that supplemental funding, let alone the intelligence agencies and all of that. But even so, 54% of discretionary spending going to the military, i.e. the majority of your tax dollars going to the military. And, oddly enough, I don't see hospital beds and parks and school repairs on this list so much. I see military, the vast share, and interestingly, the second largest slice of this pie is actually government. The government spends the second largest share of discretionary spending on itself. Surprise, surprise, who would have guessed it? But, well, that's because we need the government, because who else would be able to fund the massive, bloated, multi-billion-dollar military-industrial complex, guys. Come on. And if you're going to criticize, well, this is the U.S. government, but we're talking about Europe, James. This is a European game. Okay, go to Eurostat, government expenditure on defense, and you can find in the EU 28, 2.9% of GDP spent on defense, which of course is military, foreign military aid, etc., which amounts to about 200 billion euro, give or take. So again, the vast majority of money is going to bombs and tanks and other googads and gadgets for the Pentagon and its associated brethren in the NATO countries around the world at the expense of the taxpayer. But again, remember, it's just for hospital beds and equipment. Let's not tell people what this money really goes for. You can continue reading through, national welfare, high standard of living. You can continue reading through this lollipop dictionary. But anyway, you get the idea. Taxlandia. Well, why don't we start? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, select age group. Well, let's just pretend I'm a 9-year-old. And I know nothing. Please tell me about taxation, Miss Scary-looking authority woman. My God, that's creepy. Main story. Hello, you are now in Taxlandia, a tiny European state. With gorgeous mountains peaked with snow all year long and clear blue lakes, Taxlandia was a popular touristic destination. The local economy was booming, so the former governments chose to collect minimal taxes. 10%. Oh, minimal. 10%. Wow. Public services thrived and citizens were happy, but something changed. In the last 10 years, other countries took advantage of the global commercial boom, but not Taxlandia, since its infrastructure was old. And with no modern rail facilities or airport, tourism decreased. So last year, the authorities admitted that it was the time to increase taxes. But people were not happy, and an unofficial tax rebellion started. Many citizens and organizations decided to leave the country, refused to pay taxes, or even tried to find illegal means to avoid paying the new taxes. Oh, I see you, illegal people trying to avoid taxes. I'm coming for you. And now you have been appointed the new Prime Minister of Taxlandia. You have to start collecting more taxes without knocking down the already weak economy. Build the new infrastructure, ensuring further development of the country. Good luck. Yeah, thanks. All right, so let's go. All right, and the first thing you get to do is go through this tedious tutorial where it shows you every single button and what everything means and does. Oh, here's the happiness index, and here's the employment index, and here's the pollution index, and here's the criminality index, and here's your statistics button, and blah, blah, blah. Here's your news feed, and here's the map, and here's the settings, and da-da-da. Here's your budget, here's your score. If you've played any sort of SimCity-like game, you know the basic principles of what's going on here. So let's skip the tutorial and let's get to the game. All right, here we go. Here's the good stuff. All right, total tax. The former government left no budget. By increasing the taxation level, next year you could have the necessary budget to implement change. Mind that while high taxation allows you to provide all the required services, the population will not be pleased and the criminality may rise. Zero self-awareness here. Yeah, you make criminals out of people by raising... Anyway, find the right balance and wisely allocate the budget at your disposal once you've decided on the optimal taxation level. All right, here we go. Let's set the tax revenue. Oh, so you get to set the revenue as a percentage or as a number here. Here's the total tax. So here's, 25% taxation. You can raise almost 700 million euros, and it breaks it down. Health, education. Here's your expenses. Here's your budget. Oh, look, I'm in the green. I'm in the surplus. Wow, this is good. You keep raising taxes and getting more money, but then you start to raise taxes and you get less money. What's going on? What's the Laffer curve? And then eventually you get to 100%, and suddenly you're collecting nothing. What on earth is going on here? Oh, okay. There must be some sort of sweet spot of taxation that the EU government can tell you all about if you just select the right level here. But hold on a second. I'm having a little qualm of conscience because, of course, we've been told what taxation means by the handy-dandy glossary in this game, but We all know that taxation equals theft, right? We know that. Well, of course not. That's just a meme, James. That's just a meme. Well, yes, that is just a meme. It's shorthand for a more accurate portrayal would be that taxation is extortion of a population by a gang of thugs that claim to have ownership over that population. In fact, the most concise and best way of putting it that I've ever seen comes in the 6th letter of Captain Mark from pirateswithoutborders.com, where it says that when someone takes 100% of your labor against your will, we call that slavery. But if they only take 50%, landlubbers euphemistically call that taxation. It's a difference of degree, not of kind. The crown is seizing the fruits of their labor by force. Whether the crown claims a fortune or a cent is irrelevant. The only right the crown has to take your money is the right of a slaveholder. Yes, that says it pretty succinctly. 100% taxation is slavery by definition. 1% taxation is similarly slavery. They're just allowing you to keep 99% of those proceeds. But they could change that at any time because, again, the principle is they own you, they own your labor, they own your time, they own your body, they own what you do, and they will allow you to keep a certain percentage of that, right? So, of course, from that, it follows that in all of this scale, the only ethically, morally justifiable tax rate is 0%, i.e. the government does not own you. It does not own your labor. It is not your slaveholder. So I am forced, really, by just definitions and ethics and logic. I have to put 0%. I can't take the money of other people. I do not have a property ownership of what they have or what they do because I am not their slaveholder. So 0%. Okay. Now it's time to move on to the next year of the game. And are you sure when you want to pass the next year? To next year? Again, can you at least get an English proofreader to check this stuff? Are you sure you want to pass to next year? Yes. You have failed. People demand your resignation. The population is very unhappy. You have to resign from the Prime Minister's office, but you have learned a valuable lesson, and hopefully you will do a better job next time. Interesting. You'll notice for some reason my score keeps increasing quietly in the background here. I don't know. Did I lose? maybe that one of the programmers is secretly telling me I won the game. But anyway, okay, all right, and back to the start. So you can start all over and choose correctly this time. So what is correctly? Well, we can go to the Foundation for Economic Education, which has this post up about the EU's Taxlandia game is propaganda at its finest, where the author went into some detail about this game and how to properly play the game. He actually started out selecting the 18 to 25 age group, and then he selected 5% of GDP as, I don't think that's GDP, I think that's an income tax rate. Anyway, he selected 5% for his taxation rate, and wouldn't you know it, he immediately failed as well. But it turns out, if you go up to, say, 50% of GDP, basically about what you find in France and Greece, guess what? You pass! Yay! Okay, all right, so you got to go at least, in the 30s, 40s before you start being able to pass this game. Well, what happens if you go even farther and impose a tax burden of 75%? Reminder that no country has ever been in this range, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, certain taxation rates in certain countries have been 90, and you can argue in communist nations it's, 100, depending on what way you look at the concept of taxation. But anyway, if the kids in Europe choose that level of taxation, it's not a problem. They pass. Yay! You pass the next year. Heck, an 80% tax burden gets a passing grade, as does an 85% tax burden. The only way to lose is to go over 87.5%. So, yeah, even the EU bureaucrats don't think 100% tax is workable. We can't be total, absolute slave owners, because then the slaves might revolt. As they admit when they say criminality will go up if you use too high taxes. Yeah, it's because you're making them into slaves that when they revolt become criminals. And that's the whole point of the game. But anyway, so you can go on and read further about this in the breakdown here from Daniel Mitchell. But you get the idea. This is Taxlandia. This is the EU's version of how to pay taxes and be a good citizen, and why you should, why we need to educate the 9 to 12-year-olds, let alone the 18 to 25-year-olds, about how to be good citizens in a good tax-paying democracy. All right, well, I think that pretty much does it. I'll let you guys play around with this game if you care. If not, I don't blame you. But I just wanted to pass this little bit of indoctrination propaganda on to you to see what your children are learning if they're in the EU and going to the EU's website. And if they are, I'm not sure if that's technically a form of child abuse. But anyway, this is what passes for education these days, at least according to the European Union. And I'd like to give a big prop to R. Vansdale, who originally requested this as part of the Propaganda Watch series back in the comments on the Steam It post of the original Propaganda Watch video. So your suggestion is always welcome, and we'll continue breaking down the propaganda and giving you some real truth here at CorbettReport.com.